Honorable Speaker, I want to support this report and say this time we even increase the allocation for CDF so that our people get value for money and mostly public resources. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Julius Meli.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this report. And Mr. Speaker, from the onset, I want to thank the committee for coming out with such an very informative, very detailed, and a report with a lot of details, especially on public projects. Mr. Speaker, the Auditor General's Office is a very important government office that tries a lot, and I think this is very important for this House and for the country to know that. That office is for the good of the public. That the money that has been allocated to a public entity shall be made to good use. That the resources that have been allocated to schools, to colleges, to universities, and even to hospitals are actually brought to good use. Honorable Speaker, each and every other time when an audit report is read, at times officers do not take it in good faith. It is a very important document. It is a document that tries to educate and tries to bring the public to know how their resources have been used. This report on NGCDF, which affected the constituencies in Bungoma County, actually resonates across the country, especially on certain issues. That one, CDF or NGCDF, as it was renamed, is a resource that has enabled government funds to reach the remotest parts of this country. It is a fund that has a very clear structure on how it is being managed. CDF has seen constituencies build several schools, several projects, police stations, and even earlier on, before devolution, constructed dispensaries. Mr. Speaker, before the founding of the NGCDF fund, government resources were actually not being felt in the local areas. Today, you can be able to see a classroom, you can be able to see a toilet, you can be able to see a police post, and I can enumerate a number of them as a result of NGCDF. The structures that have been placed in NGCDF are actually structures that are not expensive. This is an example of a devolved fund that is working. Today, we can see billions of shillings have been devolved in counties. But because of the nature of the county government structure and how it works, the county government structure is very expensive, but the CDF structure is very lean. It has about 5 or 6 employees. It has an NGCDF committee led by the chair, and every other time they sit depending on an allowance, which is less than 2% of the total cost of the resource fund that has been allocated to that particular constituency. In effect, Mr. Speaker, the NGCDF fund is a fund which is the most visible fund across all constituencies, all counties, and even all sub-counties in Kenya. It is through this fund that we've seen students who are orphans be able to go to school. It is through this fund that we have been able to see a number of football or sporting activities actually running across constituencies. It is in the same fund that it has enabled even institutions which were hitherto then not known even in the country to have been built to become very big national institutions in names of secondary schools, in names of colleges, in names of institutions. I know a number of teacher training colleges. I know even a number of facilities in some of our local universities that has been put up by NGCDF. So without enumerating so many, Mr. Speaker, the report that has come to be tabled this afternoon is quite informative and important. On issues that have been raised, for example, the issue of title deeds, I want to agree with Honorable Makali Mulu that many areas in this country have not been adjudicated, have not had titles. But we cannot stop building schools just because those areas do not have title deeds. The greatest expanse of the northern parts of this country, and even some parts of the pastoral regions, land is still under communal. So we cannot just rely on the title deed as the only instrument to show that, yes, you have spent money on land, but the title deed has not been issued. We know of schools that have in existence for over 30 years. They are public institutions, and they are running. Honorable Speaker, on the other issue that is very important, which has also been noted in this report, is that the accounting officers, who is the fund account manager, has to be held responsible. Because there is no fund account manager who cannot prepare audit accounting documents. It cannot be an excuse, it cannot be allowed, and in any case, every expenditure has to be put in, has to be shown that the money was withdrawn or actually was spent on item this or was spent on that particular project. And all the documentation has to be put in place. So I want to allow the Auditor General's office and the committee for pointing out that every fund account manager has to be held responsible for if they do not produce the appropriate accounting documents. And this one, we should not take it. And I want to ask the honorable members that each and every officer has to make sure that these documents are well prepared, well placed, and they should always be presented when required for audit purposes. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, in NGCDF, and I want to ask members of the Senate to note that there is no competition in terms of popularity. Members of Parliament do not play any role in it. In fact, our role has always been oversight. Our role has always been to make it as successful as possible. The fact that they do not hold or do not have any fund does not warrant them to say this fund needs to be dissolved, this fund needs to be removed, or this fund needs to be discontinued. If it will be discontinued, it will be to the detriment of the Kenyan people. Hundreds of thousands of schools, Mr. Speaker, and I think we've been together in this house for the last over 10 years, have been constructed courtesy of NGCDF. Every year, I think I can take an example of my constituency where I used to have about 70 primary schools. Today we have over 130 primary schools. I inherited the constituency when we had about 16 secondary schools. Today we have over 40 secondary schools, almost 50 secondary schools, courtesy of NGCDF. That is not about an individual. It is about the community. It is about what are we doing. Right now, there are several police stations that we want to construct. If we are going to rely on the Ministry of Interior, it will take ages for us to construct police stations. So this particular fund, I want every member of the Republic to know that it is a fund that goes down to the poorest child in the village to enable them have bursaries, to enable them earlier on to have dispensaries, to enable them have what it takes to reach that particular household. The only thing that we need to do as a house is to really entrench it, make it stronger, make it efficient, make it accountable, so that the officers who are oversighting this fund, including members of Parliament, we are ready to be accountable for it. Even the fund accounting officers, they really need to make sure that this fund is above board. And I want to tell you, Honorable Speaker, this is the fund that is going to leave a legacy in this country in terms of devolution. Even it is more effective than what the county governments are doing. It is more effective than even the funds that various governments have tried to take to the rural people. Earlier on, during the Moi administration, we had the district focus for rural development. We've had the various funds like Kenya Women, the WEZO, and all the rest. There is no any other fund that can be equated to NGCDF in terms of impact, both socially, economically, and even in terms of political impact. And I want to ask the House that as we look at the Auditor General's report, as we look at the committee of the Fund Account Committee's report, let us look on how to make it more entrenched, more constitutionally viable, and to make sure that the laws that we have are actually for the people and to the benefit of the people. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, maybe just before you do that, there is the thinking that the role of a member of parliament around CDF is still as chair, patron, and those are the issues. I thought as the chair of education, you should explain to them our role in oversight. More so now that we are considering an audit report from the Auditor General on CDF fund in respect of constituencies.
In fact, Honorable Speaker,
so take a minute or two.
Yes, one minute, Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to say this. And there's a lot of misconception, and I want to tell Kenyans, even as we are in these very difficult political times, Kenyans have tended to believe everything that is on the phone, on the social media, to the detriment of the nation. I want to say this. Members of Parliament have no official role, or even any role in that NGCDF, other than to be oversight. In fact, Honorable Speaker, in the last regulation that was issued, the Member of Parliament was supposed to be a member of an oversight committee of the NGCDF. He himself is going to oversight the NGCDF committee and the fund account manager. In fact, the fund account manager himself and the committee are supposed to identify projects where the public participates. There is public participation in identification of projects. And more so, when you go ahead, you'll realize that the money is deposited in schools' accounts that are held by the school committee members, or what we call project committee members, which is called PMC. So the role of Member of Parliament as a chair, as a patron, as anything, is non-existent. And it has been propagated over time, Honorable Speaker, so that we actually give a bad name. That's why in English they say, give a dog a bad name and then you kill it. In effect, no Member of Parliament is a chair, no Member of Parliament is a patron, no Member of Parliament has any, an official or a role in that particular thing, other than to oversight and to make sure that there is a public good, or there is actually value for money in that particular institution. I rise and I support.
Thank you, Honorable Meli. Members, this is a very critical thing because people have been asking who audits or oversight CDF. And they end up by saying, if you've been watching what has been happening, that members of parliament are implementing CDF. In the context of this, I've heard even people saying that we should kill CDF, including some members of parliament in the Senate. But without free secondary education, without subsidized university education, this is a platform for you to explain to people your interaction with CDF and how the structures of CDF indeed act. Ultimately, it is for the people of Kenya to decide what they do with the fund. The Honorable John Waluke, followed by the Honorable Peter Masara, in that order.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, to have given me a chance also to contribute on this important report. Honorable Speaker, I want to thank the committee for the good work that they have done. Honorable Speaker, the work of Member of Parliament and the work of CDF, Honorable Speaker, the work of CDF in this country, Honorable Speaker, it is seen all over. It has done a lot of work, Honorable Speaker. The money that CDF or constituencies get is very little money compared to monies that the county government receives in terms of billions. And there's no any one constituency, Honorable Speaker, that has received money, even 220 million. But you can see the work, Honorable Speaker, buying the passes for the schools. Like in my constituency, Honorable Speaker, I have managed, since I took over, managed to build 27 primary schools, in addition with what I got that time during Honorable Tangula when he was the MP for Sirisia constituency. Honorable Speaker, when you compare, earlier on we used to build dispensaries, and in any constituency or sub-county, Honorable Speaker, there is no dispensary or health center that the government can brag and say that they build. Those are facilities of CDF before it was devolved, Honorable Speaker. And some of them, after they devolved the money, we left them to the county government, and they have never been finished. They're just there. But the money comes to the county government, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, the area which the government and auditors should check and audit properly is the monies for the county government. Because it is not seen, we don't know, and we are just adding money to the county governments every time they cry. You see, like last time, Honorable Speaker, 2 years ago, they demanded money for the sports, which we used to do to help our children, to facilitate them to play games. But now, since that money was devolved, Honorable Speaker, there's a very big problem in the counties or in the sub-counties or constituencies, Honorable Speaker. Because these people, their work is to steal money. Honorable Speaker, there's a big impact. And the monies that we get, the money that can be accounted for, the money that has a structure, Honorable Speaker, is the money for NG CDF. It has a positive impact. Everywhere when you go, you will see a school, you will see administration, either a DO's office or chief's office, and they are permanent structures, Honorable Speaker, that when you go there, you will also be happy that indeed the money for CDF is working. Honorable Speaker, the work of the MP is just only to oversight. We don't have any role, either that you are the chairman of something. No. Honorable Speaker, our work is to